March 8th, 2014, 12:41 a.m. local time. A dark and seemingly ordinary night at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. The passengers of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 settled into their seats, anticipating the hours ahead on their way to Beijing, China. Little did they know, this flight would soon become the center of one of the most perplexing mysteries in aviation history and make news around the world. As the aircraft prepared for takeoff with 239 passengers aboard, all appeared to be normal as a Boeing 777 ascended into the night sky and Captain Shaw responded back to air traffic control with his final words, "Good night, Malaysian 370. Then approximately 40 minutes into the flight, something bizarre occurred. Radar data had revealed on that fateful night that Flight 370 abruptly deviated from its planned course, making a very sharp turn to the left as it passed over the South China Sea. Confusion and concern filled the air traffic control rooms as they followed what was happening. Flight 370's course was even noticed by the Malaysian military's primary radar, which seemingly tracked the aircraft turning back towards Malaysian Peninsula. What was further extraordinary is the radar indicated that Flight 370 had made a series of erratic turns and altitude changes, varying between 29,500 feet and 45,000 feet during the incident. All attempts to communicate with the troubled aircraft were fruitless and fell silent since Captain Shaw's goodbye. The aircraft's final course passed over the Malaysian state of Penang and continued to track northwest over the Malacca Strait. Then suddenly, at 2:22 a.m., almost 2 hours later since the flight began, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 simply disappeared. After the initial loss of radar contact, desperate attempts were made to locate and track Flight 370 using various radar systems, including civilian and military radar from neighboring countries. What was further extraordinary is the aircraft's transponder, which broadcast its position and altitude, had ceased functioning. It was reported that this could only happen if it was purposely disabled. It is unknown why Flight 370's transponder was disabled, but pilots have been trained to understand clearly. Disabling an aircraft's transponder without proper authorization is not only not part of a pilot's normal operation, but highly illegal as well as dangerous. This made any attempts to gather reliable radar contact or tracking data unsuccessful after the disappearance. It was shortly after an extensive search that a rescue operation began, spanning vast stretches of the Indian Ocean. But as days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, no sign of the plane or its 239 passengers and crew could be found. It was as if Flight 370 had simply vanished in thin air, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and shattered lives. There were only clues and speculations as to what happened, such as the Maldives and the Enigma Island witness accounts that shortly after the disappearance of Flight 370, residents of the island claimed to have seen a low-flying aircraft on the morning of March 8, 2014. They reported seeing a large aircraft with red and blue markings, similar to the color of the Malaysian Airlines, flying westward out to the Indian Ocean. Satellite imagery was also captured by various nations during the search for Flight 370, revealing objects in the southern Indian Ocean that were potentially considered debris. The images captured showed floating objects of various sizes, including large objects that could have potentially been aircraft parts. However, after extensive search efforts, there was no success in locating and confirming the objects were from Flight 370. The mysterious disappearance sparked waves of theories and speculations around the globe. Some speculated that intelligence agencies, such as the CIA, may or may not have had a hand in the disappearance. These theories alleged that sensitive individuals or classified cargo on board the aircraft made it a target for covert operations or geopolitical interests, such as Philip Wood, an American passenger on Flight 370. Theories allegedly suggested that he had been deemed sensitive due to his occupation as an IBM employee and may have possessed valuable information with his potential connections to intelligence agencies. Another theory asserts that Flight 370, based on sightings and last projected directions, was deliberately flown to the remote U.S. military island in the Indian Ocean known as Diego Garcia. Some speculate that the plane's deviation from its course were rerouted by an intelligence agency mid-flight for reasons unknown. There were also 2 passengers that had raised red flags with investigators. 2 Iranian passengers traveling on stolen passports were of initial interest. Investigators found that they were likely migrants seeking immigration rather than individuals connected to any intelligence operations. Malaysian authorities had attempted to use the tragedy as a political weapon against their opposition leader. A British tabloid quoted Malaysian police as saying that Captain Shaw, who was a political activist supporting Anwar Ibrahim, and cited unnamed figures describing him as obsessive and fanatical. and that political frustration may have played a part in the incident, as it was speculated that the captain had reportedly attended a court trial for Anwar the afternoon before the flight, and that the captain was a relative of Anwar's son-in-law's. But no connection between the incident or Anwar Ibrahim's conviction could not be substantiated. One prevailing theory suggests that the aircraft suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure, such as a sudden decompression or an onboard fire, leading to the incapacitation of the crew and a loss of control over the aircraft, which would have accounted for the erratic behavior of the flight. It was also suggested that the plane had flown on autopilot until it had run out of fuel and crashed somewhere in the Indian Ocean. Despite the families and loved ones of the passengers and the crew that continued to grapple with the grief and the lack of closure, and regardless of the numerous search efforts, meticulous investigations, the fate of Malaysian Flight 370 remains still inconclusive.